late in the cosmic calendar, when humankind had already begun to stretch out its curious hands beyond the borders of the Earth, a peculiar incident took place, one that would echo across centuries of interstellar folklore. The story begins not in the black void of space, but in a bright, sun-warmed vineyard by the sea, a seemingly mundane place on Earth, far from the hustle of cosmic negotiations and extraterrestrial treaties. And yet, hidden among the twining vines and the crumbling ruins of an ancient civilization, destiny was quietly at work. A soft breeze rolled in from the water, carrying the gentle hum of cicadas, whose voices ebbed and flowed like a drifting chorus. Rows of vines, heavy with clusters of ripe, jewel-toned grapes, clung to the terraced hillsides, their leaves shimmering with an amber glow in the late afternoon sun. Standing amid this overgrowth was a lone pillar, chipped and crumbling from centuries of wind and rain. Against its time-worn column leaned a figure, regal in bearing and ethereal in appearance. She possessed a beauty that seemed carved from starlight. Her gown, if one could call it that, was made from the lightest lace imaginable, reminiscent of translucent silk that draped over her shapely form with almost reverent care. The gentle folds flowed around her, each delicate stitch telling tales of eons past, subtle decorations hinting at knowledge from long-forgotten worlds. Now and again, the breeze teased the thin fabric, revealing fleeting glimpses of her lithe thighs, a mere whisper of her sculpted hips, and the radiant curves of her bust. Yet even in her sensuality, there was profound refinement, an ancient, noble quality that transcended the mortal realm. And indeed, to the human eye, she might have been taken for a Greek goddess. Her name was Salmorthia, daughter of Dravanoth the Eccentric, an alien warlord turned traitor known in half the galaxy for his flamboyant deals and flamboyantly bigger heart. Yet, Salmorthia neither boasted any craving for worship nor demanded it. She only sought a moment of repose against the old pillar, her tall, shapely figure drenched in the golden hues of the dying sun, her soft gaze turned toward the shimmering sea. The cicadas accompanied the setting day in low crescendo, and as each note rang out among the vines, Salmorthia breathed deeply of Earth's sweet air. She found it enchanting, this mingled perfume of salt and flowers, of grapevines and distant meadows. She listened to the steady pulse of the ocean waves and could almost believe time itself had paused to watch her, suspended in that late afternoon glow. Yet the story of how she came to be here was no idle tale. It involved the fate of worlds, the forging of bizarre bargains, and the question of a cosmic debt whose payment defied conventional reason. For Dravanoth the Eccentric was known to the cosmos as a collector of trifles, a hoarder of memories, and a whisperer of secrets, especially secrets that might prove useful for forging alliances, ensuring truces, or, in some outlandish cases, granting him passage where no rational being would dare go. He had once saved the life of a human starfarer by the name of Jonathan Carver, a man equally blessed and cursed with wanderlust. Jonathan, an explorer from Earth, had ventured to the edges of known space, searching for relics of vanished civilizations. In the swirling dust of a derelict station near the Valtorian Rift, Jonathan had found himself cornered by cosmic pirates. The station's life support systems were moments from failing, and no help was on the horizon. Then Dravanoth appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, in a rusted star galleon that belied its advanced capabilities. The strange alien warlord rescued Jonathan, restoring enough power to the station so they could both slip away. But Dravanoth did not do this for free. He claimed an immediate debt, an oath that Jonathan would someday return the favor in kind. That is how the galaxy often worked. Favors begetting favors, debts forging alliances. Jonathan, grateful beyond measure, agreed. Over the subsequent years, they became unlikely friends. Jonathan taught Dravanoth bits and pieces about human culture, old Earth religions, classic literature, ancient mythologies. The alien found a particular fascination in the old Greek pantheon, with its labyrinth of stories, tragedies, and comedies. Dravanoth admired their grandeur, their sense of mortal drama. This fascination ran so deep that he later designed a lace-and silk garment, an avant-garde melding of alien artistry and ancient earthly inspiration, for his own beloved daughter, Salmorthia. He cherished the idea of the Greek goddess, so tragic yet proud, ephemeral yet monumental. In time, Jonathan and Dravanoth parted ways, forging deals and exploring star systems. Yet the debt remained, quietly waiting. Decades passed, and Jonathan's renown grew among the cosmic frontier as a mediator, a seeker of lost knowledge, and a champion for peaceful trade. Meanwhile, Dravanoth's notoriety also spread. The alien's flamboyant manner was overshadowed only by the boundless generosity he could show when it suited him. In the hush of starports across the Orion Arm, rumors suggested Dravanoth was wealthier than some planetary governments, that he held entire star systems in his debt. Others whispered that he was also quite mad, and that his eccentricities manifested in his willingness to trade anything for anything, so long as it intrigued him. No one suspected, however, that the day would come when Dravanoth found himself financially compromised, not by an enemy, but by his own extravagance. He had bet his fortunes on a cosmic storm harnessed by a group of unscrupulous black hole miners. Instead of profit, the endeavor dissolved into disaster. Suddenly, Dravanoth owed more than mere credits. He owed entire shipping fleets, entire libraries of knowledge, entire swathes of cosmic influence. In the labyrinth of deals that followed, the question of how he would repay his debts to multiple overlords of commerce became a matter of grave concern. In a surprising turn, Dravanoth began calling in every favor owed him across the galaxy. Princes, mercenaries, data cartographers, and starship navigators, who had all profited from his generosity, now found themselves summoned. But to one man he turned in a manner both personal and unexpected: Jonathan Carver. Jonathan's starship, the Odyssey's Light, was on the far side of the Hellion Drift, scanning for lost probes. One day, an old code signal beeped on his console, an archaic frequency they had used in the early days of their friendship. "This is Dravanoth the Eccentric," the message said, in that pompous yet humorous tone Jonathan still remembered. "I have called upon you for that ancient debt, old friend. Answer, or my ruin shall be total." Alarmed, Jonathan immediately set a course back towards civilized space, uncertain what to expect. At last, on a remote station orbiting the water moon of Karis 3, Jonathan met Dravanoth face-to-face for the first time in years. The once grand alien warlord wore a tattered cloak of shimmering black threads, his eyes weary but still gleaming with mischief. Over a round of spiced nebulan tea, Dravanoth explained his predicament. "It is no small matter," Dravanoth said, tapping his curved talons on the metal table. "I owe a vast debt, more than I can repay with mere currency. Contracts are binding, and the overlords are relentless. They demand a token so precious that it transcends financial measure. Something beyond jewels or technology, beyond intangible bits of data. They want my daughter." Jonathan's breath caught at that. He had met Salmorthia only once. She had been but a child, pale and lithe, peeking shyly from behind her father's robes. That the overlords might now demand her freedom as payment for his debt was horrifying. "But you'd never give your daughter away to such scoundrels," Jonathan said, voice trembling. "Even your sense of honor can't allow that." Dravanoth's expression darkened. "I would rather face the cosmic guillotine," he whispered. "But they hold the power to dethrone me entirely, to ruin the entire trade empire I built from scratch. If that happens, not only would I suffer, but thousands of innocents relying on my supply routes would starve or fall to chaos. Systems under my protection would be at the mercy of pirates. And Salmorthia herself. She would be hunted, seen as worthless prey, or at best, a bargaining chip to even more ruthless warlords. I cannot allow that. I must find another route. What can I do?" Jonathan asked. A cunning smile slowly curved over Dravanoth's lips. "Long ago, you owed me a debt. Today, I pay my debt to others by offering my daughter in marriage to a powerful ally. But the problem remains: no ally strong enough to shield her from the overlords would take my daughter's hand unless it somehow benefits them immeasurably." Jonathan said nothing for a long moment. The solution, if it existed, seemed an enigma. And then Dravanoth's voice cut the silence. "I have decided, dear Jonathan, that you are that ally." He might have dropped a meteor on Jonathan's head for the effect it had. Jonathan nearly choked on the pungent tea. "Me? As I said," Dravanoth continued, "I am paying my debt to my creditors by fulfilling the vow that my daughter would be given to a being who, once bonded with her, would claim the right of cosmic amnesty from these overlords. They will not challenge you, a neutral party with no seat in their petty politics. And if they do, they would face Earth's cosmic treaties, the alliances of the Star Federation, and your own personal connections. They fear the unknown, so a strategic marriage to a human might just spare my daughter from their designs. I offer her to you, not in a vile sense of property exchange, but as a means to protect her. She has agreed to this arrangement, for she knows the alternative is enslavement or possible death." Jonathan's heart thumped fiercely. This was beyond extraordinary. He recalled Salmorthia as a graceful, almost celestial presence, but the notion of bonding with her, of forging a union born of desperation, felt overwhelming. But Why me specifically? Because you are the only human in the galaxy I trust, Dravenoth said. And ironically, the only one who owes me a debt. I saved your life. You pledged a future favor. That favor is now upon you, to accept my daughter's hand and safeguard her. And so it began, this unearthly arrangement. In less than a standard month, the formalities were prepared. Across starways and cosmic gates, invitations were sent out, though not widely, for they wished to avoid drawing undue attention. Salmorthia was swiftly brought to Earth. A secret location was chosen, an ancient vineyard by the sea, an earthly paradise reminiscent of old Greece, which Dravenoth had admired so ardently. That is how Salmorthia came to stand among the vines and cicadas, the remains of a crumbling pillar at her back, waves whispering in the distance. She wore the lace garment her father had painstakingly commissioned, delicate threads that shimmered in the late afternoon sun. Around her waist, an eccentric belt made of unearthly metal glinted, the filigree etched with symbols from her father's star maps. Strange beads, faintly glowing, dripped from the garment's edges, recalling the jewels of alien worlds. The costume was at once ancient and avant-garde, exactly the hallmark of Dravenoth's style. And here she waited, caught between the old stone pillars, while Jonathan Carver walked toward her in quiet wonder. She had grown into her womanhood with a regal grace, her every motion reminiscent of a goddess at rest in the realm of mortals. The near-translucent fabric of her gown revealed the shape of her legs and the slender lines of her hips, yet never in a crass way. Rather, it seemed in homage to timeless art, like a living statue half-veiled by swirling drapery. Jonathan approached slowly, heart pounding. He was dressed in earth finery, a crisp suit of deep navy, tailored with an understated nod to interstellar formal wear. He bore a single wedding band, plain and unadorned, made of gold from Earth, which Dravenoth had insisted be used. The vow that was about to bind them was an uncharted one, a cosmic contract sanctified not only by Earth tradition, but by Star Kingdom laws, sworn to keep Salmorthia safe from any who would dare claim her for themselves. She greeted Jonathan with a warm, albeit reserved, smile. "You have come." Her voice was low and musical, like a hush of wind across crystal. "I have," he answered, stepping up to her, his eyes traveling over the shadowy folds of her gown, the alien runes glimmering there, and finally the earnest light in her eyes. "I hope you're all right, with everything." Salmorthia nodded, exhaling a breath tinged with relief. "My father explained your friendship, and I trust in his wisdom," she said. "Truth be told, I find some comfort in you. Though we hardly know each other, you are far better than the alternative." He gently took her hand, noticing its graceful, elongated fingers, the faint shimmer to her blue-tinged nails. "If we do this," he murmured, "I promise you'll be safe. I promise you'll have freedom, independence. This vow, I only want you to be happy." A ghost of a smile lifted her lips. "And so it is written in the old prophecies of your Earth, is it not, that we are free to shape our own fates?" They exchanged no further words for a time. A hush settled between them, broken only by the distant rush of the tide and the raspy lullaby of cicadas. Then came the officiation, a blend of Earth custom and cosmic rite. Dravenoth himself officiated, reciting lines from an Earth wedding text that Jonathan had provided. Then he added new lines of an ancient interstellar vow, spoken in a guttural, lyrical alien tongue. The vow evoked the stars themselves as witnesses, binding the union in a cosmic pact that would stand against all claims. When the vows ended, a gentle wind blew across the vineyard. Amber sunlight glinted off the ocean's surface. The vines rustled around them, as if nature itself offered a blessing. Dravenoth, tears shimmering in his dark eyes, raised his hands and proclaimed them bound, husband and wife, protector and beloved. Though they were now legally and cosmically joined, neither Salmorthia nor Jonathan truly understood what the future might hold. For a week, they lingered in the hidden vineyard, protected from prying eyes, forging the tiniest threads of understanding. She marveled at human languages and recounted in hushed tones the wonders she had seen beyond the Hellion drift. He shared stories of Earth's past, from the epics of Homer to the modern marvels of interplanetary tourism. And in that picturesque place, Overshadowed by ancient ruins and resonating with the crash of distant waves, they found in each other a surprising gentleness, a companionship that felt strangely destined. But they could not remain in that idyllic vineyard forever. Dravenoth insisted they embark on a journey to finalize the cosmic contract, traveling first to the capital of the Star Federation to register their union in the grand archives of interplanetary law, and then to the Overlord councils. The overlords, who demanded Dravenoth's downfall, must learn that Salmorthia was now out of their reach, married to a human protected by treaties they dared not breach so carelessly. So, in the pale morning light, Salmorthia bid farewell to the vineyard. She knelt amid the vines, gently touching a cluster of grapes, the translucent lace of her gown trailing over the soft earth. She sighed, feeling the dew against her skin, tasting the sweet tang in the air. Then, with a wistful smile, she rose to her feet. Jonathan was waiting, her father at his side. A small starship soared overhead, preparing to land in a clearing behind the ancient stone pillar. Even as they left, cicadas sang an elegiac farewell. The warm glow of the Mediterranean sun vanished behind them as the starship's ramp closed. They ascended into Earth's sky, leaving behind a swirl of dust, the perfume of grapevines, and the echo of the sea. Part 3. The Voyage to the Federation. Their first stop was Helia Prime, a shining world known as the seat of the Star Federation's legislative body. Here, starships of all designs soared among towering spires of crystal and steel. The planet's sky had a pale green hue at sunset, and the city lights sparkled like captured stars. When they arrived, Jonathan and Salmorthia followed a strict protocol to register their union. Clad in a more modest version of her lace gown, one that still hinted at its original exquisiteness, Salmorthia drew stares wherever she walked. Jonathan, by her side, remained calm but inwardly anxious. All he wanted was to ensure she would be recognized as his wife according to Federation law, thus preventing the overlords from laying claim. The bureaucrats were perplexed, to say the least. Interspecies marriage was not uncommon, but rarely did it involve an alien noblewoman who was rumored to be the pivotal piece of a cosmic debt. Some muttered about the possible political fallout. Others saw it as a bold statement. But Federation law was clear. A recognized marriage placed both parties under mutual protection, as well as the broader treaties that governed interstellar politics. The union was duly recorded, sealed, and archived in the massive data vaults beneath the Federation Council Tower. But not all was peaceful. As soon as the union was officially noted, Dravenoth received a coded threat. A group calling themselves the Obsidian Circle demanded that he return to negotiate, implying that the marriage was a sham to dodge the payment of his debt. Dravenoth's expression darkened when he read the message. He looked at Jonathan and Salmorthia with worry. "They will not let us go so easily," he said softly. "They want to test the legitimacy of this arrangement. Prepare yourselves. We must confront them directly, or they will hound us at every turn." Salmorthia's eyes glinted. "I will not cower before them, father." The gentleness she showed in the vineyard stood in contrast to her resolute courage. A subtle tension rippled through her graceful posture. Jonathan nodded. "We'll do what we must." And so they departed Helia Prime, heading for the Overlord Council's hidden stronghold. It was said to be located on a remote station near a swirling nebula, one that glowed with the remnants of an ancient supernova. The station was called Malac Row, a place perched on the edge of a cosmic storm. Lightning danced across the swirling gases of a purple and green nebula, illuminating the gargantuan hull of a station rumored to be older than the Federation itself. Here, the Overlord Council held its sessions, outside the reach of conventional laws. It was a domain of harsh deals and lethal cunning, where feuds were settled with the flick of a signature or the push of a button. When Dravenoth's starship docked at Malac Row, he was flanked by Jonathan and Salmorthia. Her lace garment was now layered beneath a protective cloak, for the station's corridors were dangerously cold, haunted by flickering lights and shadows. They made their way through labyrinthine halls, with mercenaries and bounty hunters eyeing them at every turn. The tension was palpable. Finally, they stood before the council's chamber, an immense, circular hall ringed by archways and holographic banners. Some overlords wore elaborate ceremonial robes, others were encased in mechanical exosuits. Still others, hidden behind shimmering veils, observed from a distance. At the center hovered a dais where Dravenoth, Jonathan, and Salmorthia would present their case. A hush fell. The voice of the High Overlord boomed. Dravenoth the Eccentric, you stand accused of evading debt repayment. We have heard rumors you have relinquished your most valuable commodity to a human. Is this an act of desperation, or cunning, or both? Dravenoth's eyes flared with indignant pride. I owe debts, yes, but not the life of my daughter. By ancient cosmic codes, if she is wed to an outsider whose status grants immunity, you cannot claim her. My contract states only that I must surrender the most precious thing in my possession. She was, indeed, precious to me, but her future is no longer in my hands. She belongs to herself and to her husband. The law you abide by states that once such a union is formed, you cannot dispute it. The overlords hissed and muttered among themselves. Some looked outraged, others merely curious. The High Overlord gestured. Jonathan Carver, step forward. Heart-pounding, Jonathan did as requested. Salmorthia stood beside him, her chin raised. You are a human, from Earth, the High Overlord intoned, married to Salmorthia, daughter of Dravenoth. Confirm your union. Jonathan swallowed. Yes, he said. We are duly wed according to the Star Federation and Dravenoth's own rights. Then you stand in place of Dravenoth's creditors, the High Overlord replied. Yet you have no authority here, no seat at this council. By what right do you stand, and what promise do you bring to assure that Dravenoth's debt shall still be considered paid? Salmorthia spoke before Jonathan could. By my right, she said, her voice echoing in the chamber. For if my father owed a precious token, and that token was indeed myself, then I am now under the protection of this human. No one may claim me without challenging him. And to challenge him is to risk the ire of Earth and of the Federation's treaties. A wave of murmurs spread across the council. Earth might be a lesser power in some respects, but it had powerful allies in the Federation. Moreover, the overlords thrived on trade, including trade with Earth. Would they risk a potential trade war or a blockade if they tried to undo this union by force? One of the overlords, wearing an elaborate metal mask, rose from a seat near the dais. Dravenoth, you were cunning, indeed. You found a loophole. But we are not so easily defeated. Your debt stands. If we cannot claim your daughter, we will claim you. You shall remain in our custody until the debt is repaid. Salmorthia's eyes widened. Jonathan's jaw tightened. Dravenoth, however, merely inclined his head. Then so be it, he said quietly. I will remain in your grasp until all is settled. In exchange, you release any and all claims upon my daughter. Agreed. After a tense silence, the High Overlord nodded. Agreed. Guards. Seize Dravenoth. Though Salmorthia tried to rush to her father, Dravenoth shook his head, raising a hand in a gesture of farewell. As the Overlord's armed soldiers closed in, Dravenoth called out, Go now, my daughter. May your new life and your husband's protection keep you safe from their clutches. Jonathan, our contract is complete. You owe me no more. All I ask is that you cherish her. Before Salmorthia could protest, Jonathan seized her hand, pulling her away. The guards ushered them out of the dais area, and the overlords parted, sneering or glowering. Soon enough, Jonathan and Salmorthia found themselves back on Dravenoth's starship, which had been cleared to leave, for the overlords deemed the marriage unbreakable. Their only prize now was Dravenoth himself, who had surrendered in his daughter's stead. As the starship pulled away from Malac Row, Salmorthia stood at the observation window, tears drifting down her cheeks. Beyond the thick glass, cosmic lightning danced in the nebula, lighting the swirling clouds in electric colors. Her father was now a captive, paying the debt he owed. She had been cast adrift to begin a new life with a man she barely knew. She and Jonathan were free, but at what cost? In the weeks that followed, Jonathan tried everything within his means to secure Dravenoth's release. He leveraged connections in the Star Federation and sought legal counsel among the best cosmic attorneys. But the Overlord's domain was a law unto itself. Without Dravenoth's direct cooperation or a staggering sum of money, there was no easy way to free him. During this time, Salmorthia and Jonathan traveled in the Odyssey's light, Jonathan's personal starship, to find a haven where they could regroup. They ended up on Lyrisfee, a tranquil planet known for its waterfalls and moss-laden forests. Here they settled temporarily in a modest villa perched high on emerald cliffs. It was a place of shimmering cascades and floating sporelights, a surreal beauty that reminded Salmorthia a little of Earth's dreamy vineyard. Each day, she and Jonathan spent hours together, not from forced obligation but from a genuine, blooming curiosity. She discovered that he was a gentle soul, one who disliked violence yet carried an unwavering sense of responsibility. He, in turn, found her to be both ethereal and pragmatic. She understood cosmic politics with an insight gleaned from her father's side, yet carried an otherworldly grace. Late evenings found them on the villa's terrace, beneath a sky crowded with swirling stars and drifting meteors. Sometimes Salmorthia wore her delicate lace gown, letting the warm breezes of Lyrisfee play with the translucent fabric. Despite the garment's revealing nature, there was an artistic modesty in how it clung to her figure. She looked like a vision from an ancient earthly myth, a goddess stepping from the pages of time. Those nights, while fireflies, or the local bioluminescent equivalent, danced around them, Jonathan recounted earth legends of Greek gods and goddesses. Salmorthia listened in fascination. She would occasionally stand up, letting the garment flow around her like a marble statue come to life, reenacting the poses or gestures of mythical figures. Their laughter echoed across the moonlit forest, a testament to a shared wonder that transcended species and the dire circumstances that had brought them together. But beneath the surface, a storm brewed in each of their hearts. Salmorthia felt guilt gnawing at her father, trapped and at the mercy of overlords. Jonathan felt compelled to rescue Dravenoth somehow. He spent long hours contacting old allies, poring over star maps, analyzing any crack in the overlord's fortress. As he toiled, Salmorthia would watch him from a distance, the tresses of her lace gown shimmering under artificial lights. She found his determination both admirable and heartbreaking. In quiet moments, they wondered if they themselves were truly free. They were technically married, but they had not yet crossed the threshold of genuine intimacy. Their affection was building day by day, but the specter of Dravenoth's captivity overshadowed every gentle moment they shared. One afternoon, they received a coded transmission from an old companion of Jonathan's, an ex-mercenary named Cato Varn. He claimed to have discovered a potential weakness in the Overlord Council's infrastructure. An ancient labyrinth of tunnels snaked through the asteroid belt near Malac Row, once used by smugglers. If navigated with precision, a small craft could approach the station unnoticed. "It's a fool's errand," Cato's gruff voice crackled over the comm, "but you two might be the fools to try it, especially if you still owe Dravenoth your loyalty." Jonathan shared this news with Salmorthia. She listened with trembling excitement. "We cannot let my father languish in their grasp," she said, her voice resolute. "We must at least attempt a rescue, even if it's dangerous." Jonathan agreed. He might not have been a warrior, but he possessed bravery in the face of the impossible. With the help of Cato Varn's intel, he modified the Odyssey's light for silent running, equipping it with advanced stealth plating. Salmorthia practiced using a small personal shield projector that had belonged to her father's retinue, training with Jonathan on the villa grounds. Before they departed, Salmorthia chose to don a new version of her lace garment, one that symbolized both her heritage and her determination. It was still hauntingly beautiful and sensuous, but subtle modifications had been made. Slits in the sides to accommodate a hidden belt of tools, reinforced threads that shimmered with a protective aura. It was as if the goddess had become a warrior, retaining all the elegance yet fortifying herself for the trials ahead. Navigating the asteroid labyrinth near Malac Row was a harrowing experience. Great chunks of rock floated through space, drifting in slow collisions that sparked plumes of cosmic dust. Jonathan piloted the Odyssey's light with white-knuckled focus, weaving among the asteroids while Salmorthia manned the scanners, her keen eyes scanning for overlord patrols. At one point, they nearly collided with a drifting hulk, a derelict freighter that had once tried the same infiltration and failed. The twisted metal loomed in the starship's path like a silent warning. But Jonathan skillfully steered away, a bead of sweat rolling down his brow. Finally, they spotted Malac Row, silhouetted against the swirling nebula. The station's external cannons and patrol ships seemed unaware of their approach. Cato's intel and the stealth plating were working. They latched onto a lesser-used maintenance port, hidden behind the station's massive drive systems. The docking procedure was done in near silence, with minimal power usage to avoid detection. Once aboard, they slipped into the deserted corridors. Salmorthia's lace garment, though not typical for infiltration, was partially camouflaged by the shimmering gloom, the embedded runes glowing softly in the darkness. Jonathan wore a dark infiltration suit. Together, they moved like shadows through the station, guided by data from Cato's infiltration schematics. Their objective: find Dravenoth. They sneaked past overlord guards, hulking brutes armed with plasma rifles, dodged security drones, and navigated labyrinthine hallways. At last, they reached a detention block rumored to hold high-profile prisoners. Huddled in a corner cell, slumped against cold metal, was Dravenoth the Eccentric. His once magnificent cloak was torn and ragged. At the sight of Jonathan and Salmorthia, he struggled to his feet. A glimmer of relief lit his weary eyes. "My daughter," he whispered, pressing a hand to the transparent cell door. "You came. Jonathan, you came. We're getting you out of here," Salmorthia said, her voice trembling. She placed her palm against his through the barrier. Jonathan quickly hacked the control panel. With a soft hiss, the door slid open. Dravenoth staggered out, supported by Salmorthia, who wrapped her delicate arms around him, lace flowing against his battered frame. But their escape was discovered the moment the cell door opened. Sirens blared, red lights flashed, and the corridors echoed with the stampede of overlord enforcers. Jonathan handed Dravenoth a small blaster. Salmorthia activated her personal shield. Together, they raced back the way they came, fighting off relentless pursuers. Plasma bolts scorched the walls, and sparks rained down from overhead cables. At a choke point near a hydroponics bay, they found themselves cornered. Overlord soldiers poured into the corridor from both ends. Shots whizzed by, forcing them into cover behind stacked crates. Jonathan glanced at Salmorthia, who nodded. Without hesitation, Salmorthia stepped forward, the shimmering filigree of her lace gown reflecting strobe-like flashes of enemy fire. With an almost balletic grace, she raised a small device from her belt. It emitted a concentrated shockwave that knocked the soldiers back, sending them crashing into walls. Jonathan and Dravenoth followed her lead, firing precise blasts at the enemy's weapons to disarm them. The Overlord soldiers, stunned by the unexpected resistance, stumbled and fell. Seizing the moment, they pushed onward, weaving through corridors until they finally reached the maintenance port. The Odyssey's light still clung to the station's hull. Alarms shrieked. The station's defenses were beginning to awake. They'd have only a narrow window to undock and jump away. Once inside, Jonathan sprinted to the pilot's seat, Salmorthia helping Dravenoth settle into a passenger bench. With frantic haste, Jonathan decoupled from Malac Row. The station's scanning systems caught them, hurling them into the path of a gauntlet of turret fire. Shuddering impacts rocked the ship, but Jonathan poured every ounce of skill into evasive maneuvers. The Odyssey's light soared past swirling asteroids, nimbly dodging the Overlord's pursuit craft. Blasts of energy lit the darkness like fireworks. In a final, daring move, Jonathan engaged the ship's warp drive, skimming dangerously close to a monstrous drifting rock. The Overlord fighters hesitated, not wanting to risk collision. That hesitation proved enough. An instant later, the Odyssey's light vanished into a warp corridor, leaving Malac Row behind in furious chaos. Safe at last, they emerged from warp near a neutral star system known for its breathtaking rings of ice and crystal. Exhausted, Jonathan guided the ship to a hidden cove on an uninhabited moon where they could rest. Dravenoth slumped in a medical berth, his wounds tended by Salmorthia. She hovered over him, tears quietly falling, her lace gown fluttering around her like the wings of a sorrowful angel. Jonathan helped administer nutrient packs and healing salves. Gradually, Dravenoth's breathing steadied. When he finally opened his eyes, the lines of pain around them eased. He looked at Jonathan and Salmorthia with gratitude. "You risked everything," Dravenoth said softly, "for me." Salmorthia leaned down, pressing her forehead to her father's. "We had no choice," she whispered. "You are my father. And you, Jonathan, are my husband." Jonathan offered a kind smile. "We're family now, in a way." Over the next few days, Dravenoth regained his strength. He confessed that while he had been imprisoned, he learned that the Overlords intended to overthrow certain star systems by toppling trade networks. His own empire was a prime target. If they succeeded, it could spark a massive conflict, with countless innocents caught in the crossfire. But Dravenoth had also gleaned intel on a hidden Overlord facility that was key to their strategy. If they could sabotage it, the Overlord's hold on the trade routes would collapse, giving the Federation time to intervene. The question was whether they had the will to wage such a daring covert mission. Salmorthia's eyes shone with fierce resolve. "We cannot stand idle. Too many lives are at stake. Father, you've been known as the Eccentric for your bold bargains. This might be your boldest yet. Jonathan nodded. We can gather allies, Cato Varn, others who owe Dravenoth favors. With the right plan, we might just pull it off. Dravenoth gazed at them with a wistful smile. My beloved daughter, my dear friend, if we do this, we must do it soon. The overlords won't wait. In the weeks that followed, a strange alliance formed around them. Using hidden codes, Dravenoth summoned old contacts from across the galaxy. Ex-mercenaries with grudges against the overlords, star traders who despised the oppressive tolls, data hackers whose families had been threatened. They gathered aboard a refurbished cruiser near the shadowy region of the Hellion Drift. Salmorthia worked tirelessly, verifying infiltration plans, coordinating supply runs, and forging new alliances. She discovered a natural talent for leadership. In the midst of starship hangars, surrounded by mechanical clangs and the hum of cosmic engines, she stood tall in her ethereal garment, a paradoxical figure of elegance and strength. More than once, Jonathan caught the stunned expressions of hardened mercenaries who found themselves unexpectedly inspired by her presence. Meanwhile, Jonathan coordinated with Cato Varn to map the Overlord's hidden facility. Using stolen codes, they discovered that the facility was located inside an artificially stabilized wormhole near the star Kairos. The Overlords processed advanced weaponry there, enough to tip the balance of power in half the galaxy. The plan: sabotage the facility's gravitational stabilizers, causing the wormhole to collapse. The Overlords would lose their foothold, and their fleets, dependent on that wormhole, would be stranded or destroyed. Yet the plan was suicidal without precise timing and skilled pilots. One miscalculation, and they'd be trapped in a gravitational maelstrom along with their enemies. Among the motley crew gathered by Dravenoth was an old friend, Lady Andraste of the Venerian Belt. She was once a formidable general who had turned to peaceful endeavors, but the Overlords had forced her into exile. Another ally was Joran Quell, a brilliant engineer who specialized in gravitational tech. He harbored a deep grudge against the Overlords after they sabotaged one of his biggest projects. As this company of rebels prepared, Jonathan and Salmorthia grew closer still. In quiet moments, after intense planning sessions, they found respite in each other's presence. She confided her fears. What if her father was harmed again? What if they failed, dimming countless lives? Jonathan held her gently, murmuring reassurances that they would do all they could. In these fleeting embraces, something deeper awakened between them, a genuine love that transcended the contract of their union. Their marriage, born of necessity, was blossoming into real devotion. The vines of fate that bound them were taking root in shared purpose, in quiet tenderness, in the magnetism of two souls forging a new path. The day of the mission arrived. Dravenoth's ragtag fleet approached the wormhole near Kairos under cloak. The facility emerged from the cosmic darkness, a vast structure braced by colossal pylons, energies crackling along its hull. Overlord dreadnoughts patrolled the perimeter, bristling with weaponry. Working with timed precision, small strike teams infiltrated from multiple angles. Aboard one infiltration frigate was Salmorthia, Jonathan, and Joran Quell. Dravenoth commanded the main fleet, drawing the Overlord's attention in a feigned assault. Lady Andraste led another squad, sabotaging external defenses. Inside the facility, Salmorthia and Jonathan fought side by side, weaving through corridors as klaxons wailed. Salmorthia's lace-and silk attire glimmered under the harsh industrial lights, the graceful folds swirling as she dodged enemy fire. Jonathan covered her with suppressive blasts from his rifle, each shot carefully placed. Joran Quell rushed to access the gravitational core. Overlord troopers poured in from all sides. Salmorthia's personal shield flared to life, absorbing bursts of plasma. She retaliated with a compact stunner that unleashed arcs of dazzling electricity. Jonathan took careful aim, neutralizing threats with practiced resolve. Through the haze of sparks and smoke, they pressed on. At the heart of the facility, a colossal chamber housed the stabilizer array, towering spires humming with cosmic power. Joran Quell raced to the central console, frantically entering override codes. Sparks rained from overhead as alarms reached a deafening crescendo. It's locked behind multiple security layers. Joran shouted over the noise. I need more time. Jonathan and Salmorthia formed a defensive perimeter. Overlord enforcers advanced in waves, eyes gleaming with fury. The clash of weapons reverberated like thunder. Suddenly, an imposing figure emerged through a side door, a high-ranking Overlord general in gilded armor, flanked by robotic guardians. He roared, "Your Sabotaging's here. Surrender or die." Salmorthia and Jonathan exchanged a glance. There was no surrender. They braced themselves for a final stand. Plasma bolts and energy blades tore through the air. Salmorthia's shield flickered under the punishing assault. Jonathan grit his teeth, returning fire with unwavering determination. At that moment, Dravenotha's voice crackled over the comm. We've routed their flagship. Reinforcements are heading your way. Hold on. But the Overlord General was upon them, swinging a crackling energy blade that smashed Salmorthia's shield. She stumbled, crying out. Jonathan rushed forward, blocking the next strike with a desperate parry from his own sidearm. The weapon was cleaved in two. Just when all seemed lost, a sudden volley of blasts hammered the Overlord General, toppling him. Behind him stood Lady Andraste, her armor scorched but her eyes blazing. She had arrived with a squad of mercenaries. Go, she shouted. We'll handle him. Finish the sabotage? Joran Quell's triumphant cry echoed. Override successful. The gravitational field is destabilizing. All around them, the facility shuddered. The wormhole swirled in violent spasms as power conduits overloaded. Alarms rose to a frenzied pitch. The overlords scrambled to escape the meltdown. Salmorthia helped Jonathan to his feet. Their eyes locked, relief surging between them. Time to run, she whispered, her breath ragged. They dashed back through chaotic corridors, the structure collapsing. Allies and mercenaries converged at the docking bays. Explosions tore through the facility, and the swirling wormhole outside flickered, threatening to implode. Dravenotha's fleet hammered the Overlord dreadnoughts, leaving them too disorganized to prevent the rebels from escaping. Finally, with engines roaring, the infiltration frigates blasted away, racing clear of the collapsing wormhole. One final, cataclysmic implosion consumed the Overlord's facility, scattering debris into the cosmic void. The wormhole flickered out of existence, sealed forever. In the aftermath, the Overlords found themselves crippled. Their once fearsome presence, anchored by that facility, disintegrated overnight. Their dreadnoughts and armies, suddenly cut off from vital resources, were forced into retreat. Star Federation forces quickly moved in, establishing a protective corridor in the region. Meanwhile, Dravenotha's battered fleet was hailed as saviors by countless traders and colonists. On a peaceful planet in Federation space, a celebration of cosmic magnitude was held, part victory feast, part renewal of trade pacts, and part wedding celebration for Jonathan and Salmorthia, now recognized by all. Delegates from a dozen species attended, each offering thanks for the downfall of the Overlords. Music from different star systems blended in rhapsodic harmony. Jonathan stood in a grand pavilion, draped in the same navy finery he had worn in the Earth vineyard, but now lined with cosmic metals. Salmorthia stood beside him, radiant in her lace gown, which had been lovingly repaired from the battle's wear and tear. The garment still bore subtle scorches from plasma blasts, but these had been woven into the design, now a testament to her bravery. Dravenoth, restored to his flamboyant ways, wore a newly tailored cloak of shimmering black threads, offset by bright cosmic jewels. Tears glistened in his eyes as he watched the two exchange renewed vows, this time not for cosmic politics, but for each other, for love, for unity, and for a shared future. Salmorthia spoke with a voice steady and clear. Jonathan Carver, once, we entered this union as strangers bound by circumstance. Now, I stand before you, not as a debt repaid, but as a woman who has found joy in your kindness, your courage, and your heart. I vow to walk beside you among the stars, in peace and in peril, for as long as the cosmic sea bears our footprints. Jonathan answered, his own voice thick with emotion, Salmorthia, you have shown me wonders beyond my imagining. You've taught me that love can flourish even where fear and desperation first planted the seed. I vow to honor you, to protect you, and to cherish you, every day, until the last star in the universe fades. Thunderous applause erupted, along with cheers from humans, aliens, mechanical life forms, and bioluminescent creatures floating overhead. Even the Federation delegates, typically composed and formal, joined in the joy. Dravenoth stepped forward and placed a final blessing upon them in his guttural, musical tongue. My daughter, my friend, may the cosmos forever guide your bond. Then he laughed heartily. We have bested the overlords, safeguarded the trade routes, and discovered love in the unlikeliest of bargains. I'd say that calls for a celebration worthy of the Eccentric's name. Some months later, Jonathan surprised Salmorthia by bringing her back to the vineyard on Earth. It was a quiet day, late afternoon, with the same warm, amber glow bathing the vines. Cicadas hummed in the swaying leaves, and the distant ocean sparkled in the sun's dying light. Together, they walked among the grapes, remembering how they had first stood there, uncertain and bound by fate. The old, crumbling pillars still stood, draped in ivy. Salmorthia ran her fingers along the worn stone, recalling the day she had leaned against it, half lost in thought, her lace gown fluttering in the breeze. Jonathan smiled, watching her. He saw in her the grace and poise of a goddess, but also the fierce loyalty of a warrior and the gentle warmth of a friend. She gazed at him, eyes reflecting the gold of the setting sun, and they knew, in that moment, how far they had come. The cicadas sang, the waves murmured, and the grapes glowed like tiny suns along the vines. Salmorthia stepped close, resting her head on his shoulder, the nearly transparent fabric of her gown brushing against his arm. Their hands entwined, the band of gold on his finger catching a stray ray of light. As twilight deepened, they lingered, content in each other's arms. From cosmic battles to the hush of an ancient vineyard, they had forged a bond unbreakable. Their story, born of desperation, ended in hope, in love, and in the quiet knowledge that the cosmos, vast and perilous though it may be, was also a realm where miracles and second chances were possible. And so, beneath a sky that glowed with the purple hush of dusk, amid vines heavy with fruit and the whisper of eternal waves, the eccentric alien's daughter and her human husband found their happy ending, woven into the tapestry of countless stars.